I'd like to go ahead and call to order the regular meeting for the Maricopa City Council on Tuesday, February 19th, 2013. We'd like to, if you'd all stand for an invocation by Jim Reeves, after which we'd like to ask Chief Brannon to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. And finally, item 10.4. Council shall hear a legislative update including comments on proposed changes to the state's transaction privilege tax system by State Representative Adam Quasman. And just so you all know, Representative Steve Smith was also invited tonight, but I received information from him earlier today that he was still in committee and was not going to be leaving the state legislature until about 9 p.m. tonight, so would not make it. So glad you're here. I heard you were behind in some accident or something.
It's very true, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, members of the council. I am thrilled to be here, and I am proud to represent the city of Maricopa in the new Legislative District 11. I myself live in Pima County, and many a day do I look northward and think that this is truly the most prosperous future of any county in the state of Arizona. I really have fallen in love with Pinal County the more time I get to spend up here, and I hope this is the first of many meetings I'll be able to address and answer your questions. I'm proud to be a representative. Representative Smith gives his regrets. He was not able to make it, and essentially I have asked the mayor to come and speak with you all, and I would like to congratulate the mayor and thank him publicly for the amazing amount of work, diligent work, hours and hours and hours of work the mayor has been doing and putting miles on his car, coming up and working with the legislature for the immense transactions privilege tax reform simplification bill that's been going on at the legislature. It's becoming it was a hallmark of the executive, and there are real concerns with the bill. And I'm not here representing the governor. I'm not here representing the chair of the Ways and Means Committee. I'm here representing you. And we realize that this is going to alter the framework of the state of Arizona and alter the framework of the future of how the city of Maricopa is going to have to go about with its business. And there still are a tremendous amount of concerns. And members of the audience, if I might, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, just say that you have a superstar as your mayor. He really has. There's been about 3 or 4 coming up regularly and meeting not only with me but with the chair and other members to make sure that cities like Maricopa are made whole. And he led his voice. He was one of the few who braved a 4-hour committee hearing last night and let his voice known. And so the members of the council, Mr. Mayor, you were truly represented yesterday, even though the vote right now did not go the way the mayor advocated. The bill is not completed yet, anywhere close to where we completed, and I'll kind of start with kind of an outline of where we are at. Right now, the city of Maricopa, Mr. Mayor and members of the council, you collect a certain amount of prime contracting dollars through the current TPT system. That system is going to change. Arizona is one of the few states in the country that has the TPT collection system that it has, and it, for all intents and purposes, is a mess. Tremendous amount of different districts, tremendous amount of points of collection, tremendous amounts of point of assessment, and confusing for many tax-paying businesses in the state. The governor has made it clear this year that she would like it to be a legislative priority for her to simplify the tax code. This will be the largest simplification of the transactions privilege tax in about 20 years, and arguably one of the largest tax simplifications since statehood. I am proud to serve as the vice chairman of the Ways and Means Committee. So this tax did cross my desk yesterday, and I will continue to be an integral part of where our final product comes. Before I take any of your questions about how it might affect you, I want you to know 2 major points that I would like to address right now very publicly. While I supported this bill in committee, This bill has changed significantly in the last 36 hours. An amendment was made on how cities like Maricopa will be made whole. For ease, we'll call it the Mesnard Amendment. We've changed it from in a rev share, essentially a revenue share. We've changed that's usually based on population. Now, while Maricopa is still is one of the fastest growing states, or one of the fastest growing cities in the state, we understand that that might not be the best way to allocate revenue share in the current economic climate. So we've changed the way we are going to index your share back to the city. We've changed the indexing route, and we've changed the amount. The goal is to make you whole. The goal is to make cities like that also I represent in LD11 whole, like Oro Valley and Marana. If we do that, we might not hit 100%, but we want to get you as close to 100% as humanly possible. And know, members of the council, Mr. Mayor, that I am with you I am with you guys 100% of the way. We have got to get there. There has to be a common ground to be formed, and thank you for inviting me today. So with that, I'll answer any of your questions.
Representative Quasman, you know, I appreciate it. If, boy, you give me such high praise. You can come back whenever you want. I appreciate it. Honestly, though, yesterday I'll be the first to admit that you kind of left a little downtrodden. I would say that I left a little bit, you know, having said my piece and been on record, but felt like we really didn't get very far. However, reading some of the articles in the different papers around the state today, I felt a little more enthused that we would be getting some additional help as the bill moves through process. Even Representative Kavanaugh saying, is the chair of the Appropriations Committee, that should the city's concerns not be addressed, that he wouldn't even hear the bill, which would effectively kill it. And I think that the TPT reform is valid and good legislation. However, you're dealing with two parts that pertain to it that really, in my opinion, shouldn't be in there, but they are. And so we're having to deal with it. And so I guess I would be concerned, or the question I would pose to you is, where do you see this moving forward as we go through the process? Because it was a little depressing leaving last night and feeling like we got battered and didn't really get anywhere with some of our representatives.
Well, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, imagine not being able to have time for lunch and then going through that 4-hour meeting and then driving 45 minutes to where I live in Phoenix. So it was depressing on many fronts for me. Here's where we're at. Right now, there is a legislative time limit for the House to hear bills. And so the committee was going to hear it, the process will move quicker and then slow down. That's kind of how the legislature works. And forgive me, members, I'm a freshman lawmaker, so I'm learning just as many are about how the speed of such a piece of legislation will go through. But I also happen to sit on the Appropriations Committee. That's Mr. Kavanaugh's committee. So it's a money in, money out, and this has to go through, of course, appropriations to then get to the entire House. Here's where we're at. Right now, the Mesnard Amendment that changed the revenue share, the revenue allocation calculus, the indexing, to help make cities like Maricopa whole, has just been brought in. There are aspects of the Mesnard Amendment where there have been failures, and that is, for example, it's my understanding, Mr. Mayor, that that the city of Maricopa, not you, the city of Maricopa levies a tax above the standard rate for prime contracting. The Mesnard Amendment does not address that issue. That would be a revenue loss for the city of Maricopa. Issues like that have to be addressed because we don't want every member of the legislature is also, you know, they live in a city, they live in a town. And many of us not many of us live in the grand imperial state of Phoenix. And so, whereas Maricopa County might see benefit, I'm interested in the future prosperity of southern Arizona. And we need to ensure that cities like you are made whole. So it's going to be addressed, the way the Mesnard Amendment has been laid out is a first step. We now go back to the Department of Revenue and the governor's office, where we will then hash out, okay, the cities have their numbers based on the Mesnard Amendment. Where are the cities going to be with the new indexing? And I'm sure we'll hear from your office shortly on that, probably by the end of the week or next week. Then we all go as a package, the stakeholders, so different cities, the members of the Ways and Means Committee, myself, Ms. Lesko, Mr. Mesnard, as well as Mr. Kavanaugh now, because that's where the next committee it has to go to. We have to then have another stakeholders meeting to make sure that everybody's on the same page. Now, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, let's not pretend that everybody's going to walk out arm in arm, linked, and you know, dancing out the door. There's going to have to be some compromises made on all sides. If we can get to and ultimately, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, it's going to come down to whose math is right and whose math is wrong. And we know that. We know there's going to be some apples and oranges going on. Ultimately, I believe, in all honesty, the numbers are there to get it through the House. The numbers will be there to get through the House. So our goal is to make sure that if it's going to hurt the future revenues of the city of Maricopa, we want to make sure that as much of their interests are put into the bill before it leaves our control in our chamber. After the House, it goes to the Senate. Where and how quickly it gets through the Senate is, frankly, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, anybody's guess. Not only do I not, you know, I don't have a tremendous historical and institutional knowledge of how that works, but because it's such a large piece of legislation, it's going to be one of the, I would guess, my best guess is it will be one of the last bills signed before the end of the year, before we do the budget. Also, as just on a political side, it will be a hotly debated issue, so that people who want other things in the budget, just as normal politics works, it will be a bit of a political football. Now, I'm not saying that the future of the city is a political football. That hopefully we will fix as much of it as humanly possible when it's in our world. But I foresee it slowing down on the Senate side and having it, and I see passage through the Senate or stall in the Senate. You won't know that until perhaps a month from now, 2 months from now. Okay. But that's kind of where we're at today. It's kind of a quick and then a slow and then maybe and then a hop up. But once it gets through the Senate, this will be signed by the governor. So we need to make sure we change it, fix it, improve it now.
Thank you. Councilman Brown.
Thank you for coming. I have two questions. First of all, will you explain to us what the Mesnard Amendment is?
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, can I get my cheat sheet on my desk to make sure it's completely explained correctly?
Yes.
Thank you. Walk in with it and walk out with it. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Currently, you receive, or the cities receive, 20% of a revenue share through prime contracting right now. That's what you receive on prime contracting. What we are going to do, because of the prime contracting now being swallowed up by the state, we are going to move a rev share through a 40%. We're going to increase from 20% to 40%. It's going to be put in what's called a bucket that's going to be distributed based on construction growth, and that is not full cash value, but a limited cash value of new construction. How we find that number of limited cash value, I don't want to lie to you. I don't know, and I have a meeting with the Department of Revenue to figure out exactly what that means, because that question might mean the difference of a tremendous amount of money for the city. What does limited mean? That's an important aspect. We're going to increase that 20% to 40%, and it's distributed based on new growth and new construction. There's also a $40 million sourcing assessment that's going to start in the state of Arizona. And what that means is currently, let's say a visitor comes into the state of Arizona, purchases a good at the Grand Canyon at the Grand Canyon gift shop, but wants to ship it, let's say it's a piece of pottery, wants to ship it back home. Right now, that's not charged tax. We are going to levy an assessment on that for the first time in state history. So we're broadening the base, lowering the rates, and that will then be sourced back into population. So right now, you right now have retail that's shared with cities based on population. You have 40% on the limited cash value of new construction. You have the $40 million of sourcing based on population, and then you have the rub that I've been avoiding until this very moment, which is the hotly debated issue of non-compliance of prime contracting, that there is a differentiation between what the League of Cities and Towns believes exists and the Department of Revenue exists, and that is TPT, according to the Department of Revenue, that is not paid right now. That is receipts not turned in, a tax form not turned in because it's on the honor of the prime contractor, and the assumption is that about 31% of TPT receipts are not turned in as a non-compliance factor. That will be taxed based on the point of sale aspect of the TPT reform. This is ridiculously complicated. I am so sorry to Mr. Mayor, members of the council, if I might address the audience just saying this is ridiculously complicated. I'm sorry to put you through this. Imagine 4 hours of a committee hearing about this, and then you'll have a lot of fun. But it is the future of this city, and that's very important. And we have to understand that the goal is for the cities to be made whole in the new allocation basket. We think that even without the 31% noncompliance, we can make cities whole. So let me have this little basic example. Under the current TPT, let's say there's a contract for $100,000. That $100,000 contract price times 65%, which is what's able to be taxed, times 5% of the state rate, times 20% that goes into the city shared revenues fund is $650 going into the city of shared revenue. Under the new legislation with the Mesnard Amendment, that same $100,000 contract price times 41%, which is the new rev share rate, that's the estimated materials amount of the contract price, times 5% of the state rate, times 40% that goes into the city shared revenue fund is now $820 going into the city shared revenue fund. So even if we think that there is 0% noncompliance, even though the Department of Revenue thinks it's 31%, we're going to assume 0%, and zero extra dollars coming in from the sourcing tax, which the Department of Revenue estimates at $100 million a year, the amount being shared with the cities is still more. That's the assumption, is that because we're finding it in a different place, we're increasing the revenue, the percentage from 20 to 40%. For all intents and purposes, cities should be made whole. Now, here's the rub. If you're going to ask me right now, will cities be made whole?
The answer is no.
I don't know. No, the answer is not no. The answer is I don't. With all due respect, Mr. Mayor and members of the council, I think we need to see it. I think we need to see it, and that's where the concerns are going to come in, and that's why we're going to continue to work with the mayors of many cities, not just Maricopa. We're going to work around the clock to make sure that that you are not steamrolled here. That is why I'm here right now. I wasn't sent here. I want to be here to show you that we care about, that Representative Smith and myself, we care about what happens to the future of Maricopa.
Well, we certainly appreciate that. It would appear that, based on your description, there were several issues there that should have been broken out rather than voted into one bill. That's the way it sounds. The second question is, do you know which senator is driving this bill?
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, this would be a House bill, so the chair of the Ways and Means Committee has introduced the bill. There wouldn't be, I mean, there were many sponsors, but there isn't necessarily the same type of prime sponsor on the Senate side. It doesn't work that way. It's not like it's a separate bill. It'd be one bill and then hops across the lawn to the Senate side.
I know, but is there any one senator that you're aware of who's hot about this?
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, not that I know of, but that doesn't mean that there isn't one.
Thank you.
Well, and to clarify, just a little bit more on what you were asking, Councilman Brown, I think Representative Lesko is the one who was asked by leadership to initially drop the bill.
Correct.
So there are co-sponsors, but she's the chair of the Ways and Means, and she was asked to drop the bill. Paul and I have met with her in trying to do our best to raise these issues, as well as presented a whole spreadsheet full of numbers and trying to do our best to argue numbers. And like you said, in a 4-hour committee meeting, it's not the best place to argue a bunch of numbers, but we tried anyways. Other questions? Councilwoman.
Representative Quasman, thank you for being here tonight. What's the plan of who's going to monitor the noncompliance with the construction?
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, right now, based on how the TPT is collected, the compliance is an on your honor. I fill out a form, we're a contractor, and we're going to have we should be taxed at this rate. By taxing at the point of sale, it's automatically taxed. So it's not that there has to be a monitor for the non-compliance, and that will actually be, the proving of whose numbers are right there will actually be known immediately. I mean, frankly, it should be known in the first month, because you'll find out what the non-compliance is, you know, annually divided by 12. I mean, it should be around that correct number if just, let's say, that every month has an average amount of non-compliance contracting. But then there's the question, of course, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, there's the question, of course, is, was it because the market's picking up, so there's more commerce that would be a prime contracting, or is there not? So it's going to be, my fear is that we're going to have to prove a negative on this, and there will always be debate. So this is a tough issue. It's hairy on all sides. However, I do have to say, contractors and business owners are going through, for lack of a better word, hell right now, trying to figure out forms for different places and different regions. And if you're doing business in different counties and different towns, you're filling out 1 million different forms, and it's tough for the taxpayer. And the state of Arizona, the legislature doesn't just represent the cities, we also represent everybody in the cities. And we need to make the business climate, especially as states like California fall into a mired mess of a business climate, we need to make our tax system as simple as humanly possible and ensure that simplification does not bankrupt the cities in the meantime that are so important, especially growing cities like this one.
I have another question, I guess, that's been bugging me, is that, you know, we were arguing about the 31% in the council meeting. You know, at the same time, I guess my concern is that cities, when we budget for things, we budget from the standpoint of the worst case scenario. What scares the living tar out of me is that the Department of Revenue is budgeting on the best case scenario. And so, you know, if it doesn't hit that mark or above, anything below is a loss. I mean, truthfully, if it doesn't come in at, or, you know, at par, then everything that we're counting on is a loss. And so I guess that's something I really wanted to ask the committee yesterday is you're right, at the point that 2 months into this, we're going to know whose numbers are right, and I don't doubt there's stuff on both sides here. There's certainly people that don't comply. Yet I would also argue that there's a lot of builders in the state who are the big builders that are very reputable that do. So I guess my concern is that we're being asked to budget on a worst case scenario. The state of Arizona is doing this on a best case scenario, and I'm just fearful that we don't hit that par mark.
Well, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, I hold a master's degree in economics, and this makes me nervous. So when we're doing the numbers, we are nervous. That said, let me allay your fears and assuage your fears, is that you should be made whole if the Department of Revenue is completely wrong on the non-compliance factor, based on how the rev share indexing is going. And that is what we want to see. I don't want to, when I worked with Representative Mesnard on this and how we were going to figure out a way to do this, and members of the council, when the mayor and I were sitting down and honestly going, and how do we try to at least, make sure that if this does happen, if this does go through and it's looking like it's going through, to mitigate any type of damage done to the cities. I want to live in a world where even if we were completely wrong in non-compliance, and it's not we, it's if the Department of Revenue was completely wrong on non-compliance, that you should still get to this point. And this should, the non-compliance should always be, should be gravy. I mean, that's what I'm hoping for. And frankly, with what we have right now is, with the 40%, the increase of the rev share and the 40% on the cash value, that should do it. I mean, in certain very rural in very rural areas with no growth and no construction and no new, and places like Douglas, Arizona, where you don't see, well, unfortunately, they're really on tough times. Not just as a city budget, but as a private economy grows in, that can be a lot more difficult than a city like Maricopa with all the makings of a thriving economy.
I also wanted to kind of throw it back to staff in this. I mean, certainly we've been working very closely with, with the legislature on this as it's arisen. We've talked about this being a bill that the governor finds very important, but I kind of wanted to ask city managers up here distributing stuff, kind of what she thought as it pertains to if the numbers don't play out and kind of what the scenarios might end up being. So I'll toss it to you, Brenda.
Nice to meet you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. At a really high level, just wanted to kind of give you and the public an idea of what kind of numbers that we're talking about. So what I just distributed to you is a quick spreadsheet that just shows, and I'm sorry that we don't have this on screen to show the public, but we'll certainly get this posted if we have the ability. Oh, we do have it. Very good. Okay, so what you see there on the top is what we currently receive. And if you'll draw your attention to the gold bar, you'll see that our current revenues for the upcoming fiscal year are expected to be $6.765 million, and it would go on all the way out in the future years to $10 million. The second box in the handout that I gave you shows what the impact of the scenario is that is currently proposed, and you see what those revenues come down to be, anywhere from 3.8 going out to 4.467. So the final box at the bottom there shows you, and you can see it's highlighted in yellow, is that it shows you what the impact would be as far as a loss to the city's general fund. And you heard a presentation tonight, and we're going through the budget process right now, so it gives you an idea of what kind of impact that has. It is potentially devastating. We are looking at 8.6%, 9.1%, then 12.7%, all the way in the year 15-16, which coincides with when we have all these big projects the council has built through your vision and brought on board, to a 20.1% hit to our city. This is our general fund. This is what puts cops and firefighters out there for you. This is what ensures that you have streets and that you have all the different things. This is, and planning staff to bring growth in. So we as staff appreciate the opportunity to just present this to you. It is very complex. So just at a high level, we are primed to grow. And growth is what has given us the ability to build the projects that our residents are now enjoying. If it is taken from us, this is not something we will ever grow out of. Prop 117 has put a cap on how much our property taxes can increase per year. So even as we grow, we're going to be limited by the amount that we can grow based on new construction and based on that growth that's limited by that new proposition. So we appreciate the opportunity to present council and the public with the true impact of this. We're going through the budget right now, and there's nothing that's off the table for us to try to address this. Now, we realize that it is projected to be a proposed phased-in process beginning in January 15. So could we put our heads in the sand and ignore it and wait for it to hit us then and worry about it then? You bet we could, but that's not good fiscal management. And that's not what the council expects of your staff, and that's not what your staff is doing. We are bracing for impact. We are planning for the worst and hoping for the best. So it's encouraging to hear the representative tell us that we're going to be made whole, but as staff, I would respectfully request that if we are going to be made whole, that these numbers that we're showing you here are used in their calculations, and secondly, that those funds that are going to be made whole are not swept in future legislative action, because our construction sales tax that we collect and have right here, we know the legislation, as it currently stands, can't take that from us. But if we get state shared revenue increases, that's great for 13, 14, or 15, 16, or 16, 17. But what about 18, 19, 19, 20, 20, 21, and so on? We need to think of the future. And so we would want some sort of reassurance that that money won't be swept in future years. So those are a couple things. I'm open to answering questions that you may have, and staff as well.
Thank you. I know that these are the numbers that I was speaking of that I presented to the committee as well as to Representative Quasman yesterday, as well as in our private meetings with Representative Lesko, et cetera. One of the things that was, we even mentioned this in my testimony yesterday, was that we were looking for those guarantees to keep them from being swept. Obviously, at this point in the game, we haven't received any of those, and I think that will become incumbent upon us to, i.e. you, Representative Quasman, to certainly bring that up on our behalf moving forward in order to say this is a piece that again, we're willing to work with, but we need to have those assurances, because again, I'm afraid that from what I heard yesterday by some of the representatives, that they're not willing to sit down and talk about our numbers versus their numbers and let's meet in the middle. And that's what I'm afraid of, because like you said, it's going to be down to a match of numbers, and it's either we're right or they're right, and if we're right, you can't take it back.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, I could not agree with you more. And the reason why I'm here is because I'm scared about this. And there are many representatives right now, let's just say, not making sure that they're meeting with their cities and towns, because they know in their hearts that unless, I don't know how you can look at your city again that you purport to represent, and look them in the face and look at the council members and look at the citizens in the face and say, we didn't do everything in our humanly possible power. This is not a gas tax sweep that you could say, oh, well, by the way, we needed the funds, state's bankrupt, so now we're okay. This is not that. This is 20% of your budget. And that, one of the first things I talked about after the meeting is when we talked about the phase-in, I don't know why there couldn't be language that says at least as good as X, especially for it as a part of the phase-in. I don't know why there can't be language talked about that says under the shared revenues. I mean, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, if we all agree that those numbers are correct, okay, if we're looking at the numbers, I just want to make sure this is pre-Mesnard Amendment numbers. So we all know that this is a nightmare scenario that we made sure that is not going to happen under the Mesnard Amendment. So it's going to be, we know for a fact it's going to be better than that. That doesn't mean whole. Those are two very different things, and I want the members of the council to know that I know that that does not mean whole. So what we would like to do is let's sit down again. And Maricopa, if I might address the staff, and Maricopa did something that many cities didn't do, and that was in working with the legislature when we said, let's see the numbers under the scheme that we want to see them. So there's no excuse that those who are really pushing this bill through, there's no excuse to say, well, you haven't given us the numbers, therefore we don't need to listen to it. And I have to say, to the mayor's credit, in the committee, in the 4-hour committee hearing, you were commended by the chair, saying you were one of the few people who gave us actual numbers and didn't fudge them. So right now, under the Mesnard Amendment, let's go back to the drawing room. Let's go back and redo this with what we think is going to happen if there is the 31% or if there's not 31%. And I want to see it really without the 31% of the possible not. How do you know it's 31? How do we know it's 31% if we know that they're cheating on the argument? That's one of my. That's like saying that we talk about. Somebody said at a to talk about firearms real fast. Somebody said at a 40% of gun sales in America are illegal and not captured by the. Well, how do you know that? How do you know if they're illegal and not captured or recorded? How do you know it's 41% of it? It makes no sense. So these numbers, we want to make sure, let's forget the 31%. If you can't be made anywhere close to whole, You know, we might not all get to 100%, but let's get so that the patient still survives at the end of the day. That's what we're looking for.
We will give you the numbers as to the Mesnard amendment here in the coming week. But I guess I have one last question. In my discussions today with some of our staff, one of the things that you'll see right at the top is the projected single-family home permits. And overwhelmingly, that seemed to be what most cities were talking about, as well as most members of the committee were talking about yesterday. However, one of the things I guess that you get so focused on this, and I think the committee was so focused on it, you know, we stopped for a second to talk about growth and what growth really means. It doesn't always mean single-family homes, you know, or apartment complexes. It can mean, you know, 30-story buildings. And Tempe has a different issue. I mean, they're not building a lot of homes in Tempe because they don't have any more space. So they're building up. And so, you know, that's something that's not even addressed in here. And I'd be interested to see if you have a thought on that, and if not, you know, maybe where that goes. And I'm not arguing for Tempe, I'm just saying that we were so focused on houses and growth, we weren't even talking about what that means for, you know, the loss of what is a $30 million building, you know, at construction sales tax versus, you know, point of sale for that $30 million building.
Another aspect, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, is that, you know, people are assuming that that cities are going to receive funds from their retail aspect to it. But if we don't have a Lowe's, if we don't have a Home Depot, if we don't have a lumber yard, you're not going to see that sales. You're not going to see those sales. And that's important aspect that this hurts. I did not come to the legislature to lose my cities. I didn't. and that's why I'm here. And so it's, you know, you guys hear from like the big, whether it's the Corporation Commission ready to raise your water rates, or somebody coming from out in the suit saying, this is going to happen no matter what, Bob, you know, the big bad wolf here. I'm coming so that I'm requesting the job to be the lawyer, to be your advocate up there. This is why I'm here, because I do think this bill is going to go through. I do. I don't think I could stop it. I'm a freshman lawmaker. You know, the people, I'm proud to represent everybody, but I'm a freshman lawmaker. I don't have a coalition of 30 people behind me. You know, the speaker has a coalition of 30 people behind him. You know, the governor has a coalition of more than that on both sides. So here's what I promise I could make. Mr. Mayor, members of the council, members of the staff, everybody in the audience, here's what I can make. I'm going to work with you guys. Let's get you as whole as humanly possible. Is this going to hurt? Probably. Probably going to hurt. I'm not going to lie to you. But let's make it sure that you don't get killed over it. Let's try to make you as whole as humanly possible, or else we can't support the bill. And it's not just me, it's other major members feel exactly the same way. I can speak for Steve Smith in saying we feel exactly the same way about this. Tax simplification is important for the state. It should be important for the city, but it should not be coming at the cost of the death of what made this state great in some of the best urban areas and some of the best cities, and where the city of Maricopa has been nothing but successful. I don't want to punish that success. So that's why I'm here. I am proud to represent this city and represent parts of Pinal County and parts of Pima County. This is a great job, and I don't take it lightly. And this is the beginning. This is not the end. This is not a done deal. Nothing here. We've already changed. Think about this. We've already changed this entire framework of how you're going to be made whole in 24 hours. So this is still a lump of clay that we're forming. And I want to thank you again for being helping me form it in the right way for the best interest of the people of Maricopa.
Any other questions, Council?
Mayor.
Councilman.
It seems like the likelihood of guarantees is gone, none, right? If it were, just to say a word, just to entertain that thought, what would the legislator have the opportunity to undo the guarantee, a future legislator, or is there a lock in place where it would be firm enough not to break even?
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, I don't trust those people, and you shouldn't either. I just tried to put a spending limit today, and I was considered a crazy person because I tried to write a bill that says that this state shouldn't spend more than it took in last year, plus population growth, plus inflation. So I think we all need, when we go home and we balance our budgets, in case of emergency, and there are emergency aspects to it. So in case there is a fire, and there is something that we have a state emergency for, we do have the opportunity to fund that. But when we go home, that's how we budget in our kitchens. Here's what we have coming in. Probably shouldn't budget more than that. So That's considered controversial at the state. I'm fighting him alongside you. I promise you. I really do promise you that. That's my guarantee that I'm not going to take away from you.
Mayor, I was able to sit in on the committee meeting 3 weeks ago, the introducing meeting, Ways and Means, and I want to thank you for bringing up the topics that were important, because it seemed like, of course, the testimonies from the governor and small businesses, and I agree that it's a quagmire of a system that Arizona has, there's no doubt about it, but I think it was more lopsided testimony, and on purpose. I understand it was the governor's representation of what needs to be done, but I want to thank you for bringing the concerns that we have as a city and other rural areas of that being lopsided, and we're pro-business, we're talking about economic development a lot, but at the same time, it shouldn't be anti-city, local city government. So the concern I have, and I thank you for your fight going through this, because I agree with you, it shouldn't be all or nothing, and that we should be made whole as much as possible. So I want to thank you again for that, and that's been my concern and just observation, just my short time here on council, is that state legislator does not hear what we locally have as concerns. So thank you so much for doing what you're doing.
Mr. Mayor, if I may, just on a couple other points that are not TPT related,
Absolutely.
I would like to ask the permission of the mayor and the council to be able to help advocate on behalf of the people of Maricopa in their global water dispute with the Corporation Commission. I feel that a raise in rates on the people is, at a time of recession, is disgraceful, and I'd be proud to represent you in any way in any way you see fit for me to have the most effective role on behalf of the city. Furthermore, I would like you to know that my office is absolutely available to anybody here, whether you would like to come in your official capacity, or anybody here who would like to come in a non-official capacity and see what actually goes on in the legislature. It's actually kind of fun. Spend a half a day with me. If you'd like to email me. Come up. It's not that far. Come up in the morning. See where we are. We have usually session at 1:30 in the afternoon. I'll introduce you from the House floor, so your name is in the permanent record in Arizona's history, and come and see the legislative process firsthand, because this is the people's house. So,
Any other questions? Councilwoman Garcia.
Thank you for letting yourself involve this fight with the TPT and global. Representative Smith wrote an editorial of the bills he's sponsoring and indicated that immigration and tenant notifications were his priorities. In short couple of sentences, what are your priorities?
Stop Obama, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, to stop Obamacare in Arizona at all costs. It will bankrupt this state, and it will trap individuals into a subpar health system. The governor has looked at a major expansion under Obamacare, which we knew in 2009 as the Cornhusker kickback, and it's a raw deal. That's first of all. Secondly, continue to lower taxes and continue to and rein in state spending. It's the big issues, and the big ideas are worth fighting for too. You know, we do a lot of the small stuff, but the big principles of limited government, low taxes, no special carve-outs, broad-based reforms so that everybody has a chance to prosper. Prosperity is the name of the game, and that's what I intend to do.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Any other questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Osmond, appreciate it. Appreciate it. One of the things that I know that we have wanted to do as a council is to have our supervisors, our representatives, our senators here on a more regular basis, hopefully quarterly, and to give us these updates, and especially as the legislature is in session, but what they're working on and what they're trying to accomplish. So I would also echo Councilman Potter's, Representative Quasman's been very kind to us in letting us go down and talk about our issues. It's been rather entertaining from the standpoint of sitting in these hearings and being able to get questions asked, and being on the official record that Maricopa is known, and that everyone on that committee, that Ways and Means Committee, knows that, that Maricopa exists and that we're there to fight this fight. So I appreciate that, and thank Representative Quasman and all who are helping us out with that. So with that, we have gone through the agenda, and I would entertain a motion to dismiss tonight.
So moved.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. We appreciate you being here. Thank you so much.